Okay, when I say Somali passport, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe words like limited or, challenging? Well, what if I told you the real story is way more complicated than that, with some twists you probably won't see coming? Let's get into it and uncover the truth behind one of the world's most misunderstood travel documents.
So let's just start with a simple question. Picture it, you're holding a Somali passport. How many countries do you think you could just fly to and get a visa right when you land? What's your guess? 5? Maybe 10? A dozen tops?
The answer is 25. Nope, that is not a typo. 25 different nations will give you a visa right on arrival. Now, for a passport that has a reputation for being one of the most restrictive on the planet, that number is pretty wild, and it's the perfect place to start this story.
And that brings us to our first section here, an unexpected welcome. Because that number, 25, it represents a very specific kind of access. It's not exactly a free pass, but it's definitely a welcome mat rolled out for you the moment you step off the plane.
So, what even is a visa on arrival? Well, the name says it all, really. You get on a plane, you land in a new country, and you get your visa right there at the airport. No spending weeks or even months wrestling with paperwork and appointments before you've even started packing.
And what's really cool is just how varied these 25 countries are. We're not talking about just one little corner of the world. You've got these incredible island getaways like the Seychelles and the Maldives, major hubs in Africa like Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Ghana, and even destinations in Asia like Bangladesh and Cambodia. It's a genuinely global list.
Now, it's really important to get the distinction here. A visa on arrival is awesome, but it's not the same as totally visa-free travel. For that, Somali passport holders have 9 countries. Think Benin, Malaysia, and Haiti, where you can just show up, no visa needed at all. So you see, there are different levels of welcome out there. But okay, while that initial number is a really surprising bit of good news, we have to zoom out now and look at the bigger picture. And that brings us to our next section, the global ranking. 25 countries sounds pretty good on its own, right? But how does the Somali passport actually stack up against every other passport in the world? Where does it really land on that massive list?
And here is the other side of the story. The Somali passport is ranked 103rd in the world. Just let that sink in for a second. This number paints a totally different picture, one of huge, huge obstacles. It's a really stark contrast to those 25 welcomes we were just talking about. And to really get what being ranked 103rd means, just look at this list. There are only 5 passports in the entire world that offer less access than Somalia's: Yemen, Pakistan, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. That's the tough reality of the global pecking order for travel.
But these numbers aren't just abstract stats on a chart. They have a massive, real-world impact on people's lives, on their dreams. And that takes us to the human side of this, a traveler's challenge. And one of the places you see this most clearly is with young people who have big ambitions. For Somali students dreaming of studying abroad, their passport can feel like a giant wall standing between them and their own future. Just listen to the story of Mustafa Abdullahi Mohammed. He's a Somali student who was told straight up that his passport would make getting a scholarship really difficult. And then, to make things worse, people took his money just to help with the application process. I mean, this isn't just an inconvenience. It's a huge financial and emotional burden for someone who's just trying to get an education.
Mustafa's story really shines a light on an even bigger problem. It's not always about getting a visa. Sometimes it's about whether other countries even see your passport as fully legitimate. A lot of countries, especially in Europe and the Americas, won't even put a visa stamp inside a Somali passport. They issue it on a totally separate document. In fact, if you look at all of Europe, the list of countries that fully recognize the Somali passport is, well, it's incredibly short. We're talking about just 4: Italy, Sweden, Norway, and Belgium. That's it. That one little detail shows you the massive diplomatic mountain that Somalia is still trying to climb.
So, with all these obstacles, you might be wondering if there's any hope for things to get better. Is the Somali passport's future just set in stone? Well, not necessarily. And that brings us to our final section, the path forward. There's something pretty big on the horizon that could be a real game changer. Somalia is working hard to join the East African Community, or the EAC. If they can make that happen, it could give the Somali passport a huge boost, opening up travel across the whole region and giving it a lot more clout on the world stage. So in the end, the story of the Somali passport is a total paradox, isn't it? It's a key that can unlock a surprising number of doors, but it's also a symbol of all the doors that are still slammed shut.
It really reminds us that a passport is so much more than just a little book with your picture in it. It reflects your country's place in the world, and it can literally change the course of your life. So maybe the next time you look at your own passport, just ask yourself, what doors does this open for me, and what doors does it close for others?
Okay,